beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, you know, just to add into what you said about some of your personal, you know, you growing up with your family unit. You know, single parent home. I was maybe, I think my people might have divorced before I was born, maybe like a year or so before I was born. So I never got that father figure in the house. Luckily, his family lived like right next door, like right behind my house where I lived in. So I got to see him a lot. I got to see him a lot until I got a little bit older and we moved, and then I didn't see him so much. But you know, you touched on some great points about, you know, rebuilding the family structure and, you know, getting back to that, you know, that unity, that, you know, the unity, I feel like you just said, starts with the household. Um, so let's get into education. You know, you have your doctorate degree, right?
Mm.
Now, how important is education? You know, I'm not big on statistics, but you know, are more black people graduating, receiving their doctors, getting more education, or are more people on the decline with education? Could you throw out a few? No,
So
go ahead.
I would, yeah. So I would say, well, you say how important is it? Education is extremely important.
Hmm.
Dr. Amos Wilson, and he's always my go-to. Dr. Amos Wilson, says that education, the function of education, is to ensure one's survival. Right? Is to ensure one's survival, and it is to advance one's interests. Okay, and it is to maintain oneself. Right, and so that's what the function of education is. And he says if your education doesn't function in that way, then you're being miseducated. And I would say that a lot of us um, have been and are being miseducated, right? And so that's what education should do. It should meet our basic physiological needs. It should ensure or maintain our survival. It should advance our interests. And so that's what it means to be educated. And if you're not, and if your education doesn't do it, again, that means you're being miseducated. And so what I've noticed is that on a college level,
Hmm.
some of my students come in, and these are people who've graduated from high school, and they can't answer the basic question, who am I? If I've asked my freshman students, who are you? Where do you come from? Tell me about the world around you. How did it come to be? How are we in the situation that we are in? And what ideas can you propose to get us out of this situation? They don't know. So is that education? That's
Exactly.
not that's not educated if you can't tell me who you are. If you can't tell me who you are, where you've been, what's going on in the world around you, if you don't know how to solve the problems in your community, I don't
Mm,
care whether you have a PhD, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree. If you can't solve the problems in your families or your communities, how educated are you?
exactly.
You're not educated. And so again, this is going back to the definitions. What does it mean to be educated? Because white folks will tell you, well, in order to be educated, you have to complete elementary, middle, and high school. You have to go to college and get a degree, and that's how they define it, right? Or you go get this thing. It's a process, by which you acquire knowledge and skills, and that's how they define it. But to be educated means to be again able to meet your to meet to make your to meet your basic physiological needs, right? Or to acquire them. What are your basic physiological needs? Food, clothing, and shelter, and safety. And so if you can't secure food, clothing, and shelter with the education that you have, then you're not being educated, you're being miseducated. So you said, do I see what's going on in the you said what's going on? Do I see an incline in people? Yeah, black folks are getting educated now. Black folks are going to school. Black folks, I know they like to highlight dropout rates and things of that nature, but you
Mhm.
do have an abundance of black people, both male and female, going to college, graduating with BS degrees and going on to receive advanced degrees. You do see that, and you do have that. What I wish for is that Black people will erect our own institutions, right? And educate our babies with our own curriculum. And the objective of that curriculum would be to make us or cultivate a generation of people who have a strong identity, who understand their purpose, and their purpose would be to resurrect the Black man and Black woman. And what I mean by resurrect the Black man and Black woman is to advance us, to solve the problems in our community. That's what I would like to see, because a lot of us get, as my grandmother would say, a little piece of education. And then now, what, you're going to work for white folks. And then
Mhm.
your goal is to go out and live where white folks live. And you're disconnected now from the community because you got a little piece of education. And so you're not in the community solving our problems, right? You're living with white folks and you're working for white folks and you think that you're doing good. That
Right.
isn't good. And so again, I keep going back to the importance of us establishing African centered institutions, because what an African centered institution would do is cultivate an African person with a it will cultivate an African person with an African mindset, an African consciousness. Because let me tell you what happens, brother. And you and I had the same story. We matriculate through the K-12 system, right? And
Mhm.
what is that K-12 system doing? It's molded and shaping our minds.
Right.
And literally we're African people, but we're operating with a European consciousness. Well, why do we have a European consciousness? We have a European consciousness because we've been educated by white folks. We sit there and we ingest media that's produced by white folks, so they control the education, they control the media, they control the politics, they control the economics. And so literally we're being molded and shaped by white folks. So we do look like African people, but we operate with a European consciousness. And then we meet someone, or we hear something, and we read something, and then there's a spark, and it's like, oh my goodness, I want to learn more. And so then we start learning more, and then we wake up. And so literally right now we're in this circle of learning, and then we have to unlearn, and
Mhm.
then we have to relearn and learn. And so we have to break that cycle, and the only way to break that cycle is to control our educational institutions, because those are the institutions, or that institution, that's a major institution that that molds and shapes or conditions our mind. And so if we want Black people, or Africans in America, we want Black folks to operate with a certain mindset, then we have to control the institutions that will condition or bring about or precipitate that mindset. And one being the educational institution.